A quick note before we start. Last episode, we gave a shout out to some CubeSats, those super cool cube-shaped nanosatellites. But a shout out can only be a shout out if you pronounce the name properly, which sadly I did not. So I'm here to tell you that the satellite we called Ursa Major is actually Ursa Major, short for University of Rome La Sapienza Micro-Attitude and Orbit Testing. That's a much cooler name. Okay, on with the show. Now, I don't want to jinx us because technically there's still a few hours left, and it would just be like this dystopian year to throw in a last-minute surprise. But hey, everyone, I think we did it. We made it through 2020. So go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back, draw a hot bubble bath, play Nintendo with your kids, pop a bottle of champagne, breakdance in your living room, binge Netflix, eat a bunch of chocolate and ice cream. You've earned it. And hopefully that little reward will work its way along the mesolimbic pathway of your brain, from the ventral tegmental area to the nucleus accumbens, where it can get you pumped for 2021. In case that wasn't clear, my budding neuroscientists, I'm talking about motivation, that special sauce that keeps you going when times get tough. Because if you want to make that New Year's resolution stick, it might be helpful to understand what it is that powers our motivation and what takes it away.
We know that to get motivated, we need to respond to incentives. That's by definition how the brain works.
This is Nova Now, a pure hit of dopamine for your already overly stimulated brain cells. Brace yourselves. I'm Alok Patel. Today's episode is kind of a two-parter. Part 1 is the science lesson. Part 2 is the after party, your reward for sticking it out through the neuroscience jargon. I promise you, it's well worth it. But then again, for some of us, science is its own reward.
I'm Carmen Sandy, professor of neuroscience, and I am at the Brain Mind Institute in Switzerland.
And I'm pretty sure Professor Carmen Sandy is with me on that. Her lab literally studies motivation.
Yeah, motivation is one of these terms that it's quite complex. It's not just simple to define because we have motivation to work or to do things in order to get rewards. And this is one important aspect of motivation. But motivation is also to be able to energize ourselves in order to avoid adversity instead of giving up. And both types of motivation, because we are interested in the neuroscience of motivation, are regulated by slightly different neural circuits.
Seeing as we're headed into a new year and we're trying to stay positive and all, I want to focus today on positive motivation, the way our brain energizes and rewards itself to get stuff done. This is Carmen's specialty.
And one of the most prominent brain regions and circuits is the mesolimbic circuit that involves dopaminergic projections from the ventral tegmental area to the nucleus accumbens. And this is...
Okay, wow, awesome. Neuroscience at its finest. Can we break this down a little bit?
Okay, I can try. The mesolimbic system is composed of the ventral tegmental area, which is a very tiny brain region that it's in the brainstem, so quite deep in the brain.
The ventral tegmental area, this is where the reward system starts, where your neurons actually produce dopamine, a neurotransmitter important for motivation.
And then these neurons are projecting into different brain regions, but one that is very important for the motivational consequences is the ventral striatum or the nucleus accumbens.
The nucleus accumbens,
which is placed more or less in the middle of the brain.
It's a very small region, maybe the size of an almond, but it's important. So remember that one, the nucleus accumbens.
So we go from the brainstem, which is more deep parts of the brain, and then we go to the middle of the brain.
That pathway is called the mesolimbic system, also known appropriately as the reward pathway. It's kind of like the pathway if you were to go to your kitchen and grab a cupcake, but not really, because it's in your brain. It's way more important than that.
Of course, we are interested in looking at other aspects. So I could tell you about our work now or later, whatever you prefer.
Oh, we're going to get into it. Correct me, it sounds like what you described just now is neuroscientists have an idea between all these areas you were mentioning, ventral tegmental area, mesolimbic area, nucleus accumbens, of where cues come into the brain and the pathway it takes into the brain to dopamine, which is a signal, kind of a feel-good chemical, which says, hey, good job, or nice work, keep going. And that's kind of the pathway you all have been studying when it comes down to motivation. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think you made it much clearer.
Well, you made it smarter. But on the other hand, a real-world example of this would be the research you and your team did about measuring motivation in the brain, and you all used money, which is so perfect because I feel like we can get anyone to do anything for the right amount of money. So could you just walk us through the details of this money-bound experiment to measure motivation?
Yeah, this experiment is kind of a modified version of a previous experiment in which people had already seen that if you present participants different levels of incentives, that means different amounts of money, there will be a gradient on how much the nucleus accumbens gets activated.
The experiment works like this. First, you scan the participants' brains with a nifty technique called proton magnetic resonance spectroscopy.
That allows us to capture the levels of metabolites in specific brain regions.
Metabolites, in this case, just means specific chemicals, glutamine and glutamate, that are active in the nucleus accumbens. And these chemicals are related to each other. Glutamine is like a raw material, something the brain needs in order to make neurotransmitters that either excite neurons or calm them down.
Let's call it the resource, maybe to be converted into the neurotransmitters.
Glutamate is one of those transmitters. In fact, it's often considered the most important neurotransmitter in the brain because it stimulates activity in neurons. And so the lab used a brain scanner to measure the levels of those two chemicals in each participant.
And afterwards, the subjects went outside the scanner and did perform the task.
Next is the task. Each participant gets a rubber ball filled with air. Think of those pumps people use to sometimes check your blood pressure, which they then have to squeeze as hard as they can.
We ask the subjects, first of all, to squeeze 3 times with their maximal capacity, as much as they could, so that eventually we could see what is the maximum and establish a threshold.
Once that threshold of effort is established, the participants then have to repeat the same effort 80 times.
So eventually it's quite demanding.
And to motivate the participants, they're offered money for each successful squeeze.
So we gave them 20 cents or 50 cents or 1 Swiss franc. Then they were given a signal and they had to start squeezing until we told them that that was okay. It was done.
When the experiment was over, the team had 2 kinds of data to look at: chemical and behavioral. The brain scans measured the levels of different metabolites within that nucleus accumbens area. And then the task measured how much effort people would exert to receive a reward.
So basically what we were asking here is if particular levels of metabolites in the nucleus accumbens can predict how these individuals are going to perform in a motivated task.
And what they found is this: there is a connection, but it's not so much about the amount of any one of these metabolites as it is about the balance between them.
In particular, the ratio between glutamine and glutamate, this was a very good predictor of the capacity to endure when we are doing effort and to keep motivated over time.
The participants who had more glutamine relative to the amount of glutamate not only performed better on the task, but the task felt easier to them as well. It's almost like this ratio between the neurotransmitter and the raw material that makes it could predict the participants' mental stamina, their ability to persevere through a strenuous task. One possible explanation is that because glutamine can serve so many different functions within the brain, it acts as a kind of metabolic reservoir that you can draw from to overcome fatigue and power through.
because many times when we are talking about physical fatigue, it's been demonstrated that, in fact, the body is not so tired. It's the brain that it's signaling that perhaps it's the time to stop. So we think that probably what we found is something related to this type of signal.
So when people feel burned out, or when we say the phrase, listen to your brain, you might be actually listening to the glutamate to glutamine ratio. Now, Dr. Sandy, if I think about the individual differences you all saw, it makes me want to ask you, are there genetic differences between our ability to stay motivated? And could you also tell us about any diseases or medical conditions which could affect motivation in people, or lifestyle states? Like, what are things every day that people have heard of that could intrinsically mess with our brain circuitry that could then affect motivation?
Yeah, it's all super interesting questions. Obviously, genetics always counts, but it counts also less than one expects. Somehow, I think it's the mixture between genetics and life experiences, wherever they are. And for this, something that it's really very important in defining the levels of motivation is stress. So it can be the current levels of stress, the exposure to chronic stress that really depletes the capacity of individuals to keep going, and also, I think, mentally, or the mind power or mental power to keep going.
Stress, aka 2020's mascot, is actually one of Carmen's other research interests.
So we have very interesting data that points to stress, as I said, chronic, but also stress that maybe happened in early life of individuals. This is shaping also how the brain is developing in ways that the brain is sensing that something is going on out there that might be dangerous, and it might be less risky to have a different type of behavior, and maybe less motivation makes the individuals to be less daring.
In other words, our own survival instincts work against us. When we're under a lot of stress, when we need our motivation the most, the brain can actually respond by shutting us down to try and save energy. I mean, really, brain, you're doing this to me now?
But other conditions that you were asking are certainly depression, Parkinson's disease, also schizophrenia.
All of these conditions can disrupt the balance of chemicals in your brain in ways that affect motivation. Carmen hopes that someday, research like hers can help inform therapies or even nutritional supplements that could rebalance those chemicals, that could fine-tune the glutamine to glutamate ratio. No, that does not mean we'll all be taking motivational pills soon, but I'm sure some health influencer will probably try to sell those, so be aware. For most people, the secret to getting and staying motivated will remain more simple, and it won't require any knowledge of the nucleus accumbens or ventral tegmental area. But it does all come down to finding the right balance.
This is how biology works. Too much is not good, and too little is not good normally. So we need to find the optimum. I think in my case, it's indeed to get this balance. Sometimes I try to work a lot, and it's not very effective. What it's effective for me is here in Switzerland, going to the mountains and doing hiking in nature. It's amazing. We get replenished. And why does it happen? I don't know.
So next time I'm burned out, I'm just going to go take a walk in the Swiss mountains and see what that does for my motivation. Well, yes. Dr. Sandy, thank you so much. I think this is going to hopefully get people thinking about how to boost their own motivation and when to know to chill out.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
It was nice talking to you.
After the break, remember I said there's no motivation pill to get you instantly amped up? Well, in my case, that's only half true. So I'll be sharing with you Dr. Patel's personal, though as of yet non-peer-reviewed and non-clinically tested, method for instant motivation. Hey listeners, if you can't tell from the way I jam out to our theme song, I'm a bit of an audiophile, straight up music lover. The right track or rhythm gets me focused, energized, and motivated. So this whole season, I've been working on a little side project. I have a kind of a fun question. In every interview we do, so one last question. With every brilliant guest we've had on the show, I have one last question.
And I have one last question for you.
I've been asking them all one question.
Last question.
I have one other question for you. One last question. What is your hype song? What is a song that gets you motivated to do your work?
Let me think about it.
Boy.
That's a really good question.
I'm not a song person. So frantically going through my music files.
I want to search it. Just give me one second. Let me just pull it up.
So as a parting gift this year, I want to offer you this expertly curated, adrenaline-infused playlist in hopes it can get you pumped for 2021. What is a Claire Hannon hype song we can share with our listeners?
Oh my gosh, that is so funny because I have hype songs too.
Yes.
My hype song right now is Helen Reddy, I Am Woman. That is awesome.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore. And I know too.
Yes, I love K-pop songs, especially the BTS music.
Yes.
Because that gives me the energy to move on.
Shoes on, get up in the morning, cup of milk, let's rock and roll. Kink out, kick the drum, rolling on like
I've been listening to an artist recently, and his name is Vic Mirajas. I have two songs that I have been playing on repeat.
Oh my gosh, tell them to us.
Okay, one is called Todo Cambia.
Todo Cambia.
And the other is called Late Mejor.
Pero late mejor. Acuerdo de tu piel en cada bañador. Pero late mejor. Boto mi celular y pierdo el cargador.
There's a Canadian band called Pop. Suddenly I can't think of the name of the song. And I'm now looking up the song. Sorry. Reservoir is the name of the song.
So I am a fan of a specific genre of music which is very prevalent in South Asia called Sufi music. And there's a singer called Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan.
I know Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. Yep, sorry. Don't mean to interrupt. I got
exactly.
excited.
So, especially his remixed music. It's long and repetitive, so you can work, etc. It's beautiful. One of the songs that I really love is called Ye Jo Halka Halka Surur Hai. It's about a little bit of a trance, and a lot of these songs have dual meanings. It could be taken as medicinally induced trance or spiritually induced trance, and that's intentional.
What is the song that you could play that gets you energized to bring about your statistical genius to the world?
Well, usually it's anything by Beyonce.
Love it.
I like Single Ladies and Crazy in Love. You know, just kind of gets me going. Are you guys? Is that going to be our outro song? Because, man.
What's a song that Neftali can play that gets you excited about doing what you do?
Anything by Lizzo.
I do my hair toss, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Hair toss.
I love it. Lizzo's awesome. Is there a specific track?
All of them.
Done. That's awesome.
Gone, dust your shoulders off. Keep it moving, yes, Lord. Step into some new kids. In there, swimwear, going to the pool quick.
I'm a classic Carnatic music guy. One of the best songs is Raja Rajeshwari and Brahma Simhasaneshwari. That means it's the highest level or throne that the goddess is occupying, and that's inspirational for me.
What I love about all these songs is how different they are. Each of us truly has our own unique rhythmic source of motivation.
My hype song would have to be Bridge Burner by Mutoid Man. It's some heavy metal stuff.
I usually start the day with either Beethoven or Mozart. I love the classics.
Oh, classics? Yeah, we've got your classics.
I quite like the Rocky song. On those bad days, you just put it on. It's like, yeah.
The Eye of the Tiger song.
Yeah.
It has to be Fear of the Dark with Iron Maiden.
That is so good.
Welcome to the Jungle, like Guns N' Roses. It gets me going every time. It's adrenaline. I love it. I can't, every time I hear it, I'm like banging away and just like singing along, and it's the best.
Woo! All right. I feel like I simultaneously want to sprint, fight, slam beers, and dance. We need to take it down a notch.
Did you?
I know I can count on our most lovable scientific duo to lighten the mood. Jonathan and Omar, what you got for us?
Phoebe Bridgers has a nice new album. I don't know when I get too off, but I've also been listening to a lot of podcasts, obviously.
And by a lot of podcasts, he means this one.
Yeah, I've been trying to, while Jonathan answering, pulling up my Spotify like playlist history to see what I have been listening to. It looks like Memories by Maroon 5 has been played quite a number of times the past few weeks. Maybe I'm feeling a bit nostalgic, I guess.
Yeah. Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. Cause the drinks bring back all the memories of everything.
Aw, you guys are gonna make me cry. Too bad I'm such a hardened soul. But for real, it has been an incredible journey this year.
Cause the drinks bring back all the memories.
And we have to save the final slot for our hype song MVP, wildfire expert Emily Fisher.
So it's funny that you asked me this question.
Because she gave us a whole playlist within our playlist.
An entire playlist of smoke-related songs.
Oh my gosh, this is perfect.
Because I did something that I was not supposed to do. And sometimes my co-PI and I, Frank, would take over the headset of the aircraft and we would blast song that had the word smoke or fire in it into the headsets so that the back of the plane could hear them. And usually we'd have to mute my headset because I would be laughing so wildly that like that would override the song and they couldn't hear it.
Can you give us like one or two that really like set the smoke fire mood?
We Didn't Start the Fire, Billy Joel's. Burning Love, Elvis Presley. Burning for You, Blue Oyster Cult. Burning Down the House, Talking Heads.
This is so good.
Set Fire to the Rain, Adele. Fire on the Mountain, Marshall Tucker Band. Girl on Fire by Alicia Keys. Oh my goodness.
On that note, stay safe, stay groovy, stay motivated, everyone, and have a fantastic new year. Nova Now is a production of GBH and PRX. It's produced by Ian Coss, Ari Daniel, Jocelyn Gonzales, Isabel Hibbard, Christina Monnen, and Sandra Lopez-Monsalve. Julia Cort and Chris Schmidt are the co-executive producers of Nova. Dante Graves is director of audience development. Sukee Bennett, senior digital editor. Robin Kazmier is science editor. Emma UK is research intern. And Nina Porzucki is managing producer of podcasts at GBH. Our theme music is by the DJ who lights up my mesolimbic pathway, DJ Kid Koala. And I'm Alok Patel. Thank you for joining us for season 1 of the Nova Now podcast. Hopefully you've learned something and it'll come into play the next time you think about genetic engineering, feeding a growing population, political pollsters, if mail-in voting is safe, what happens when you breathe in wildfire smoke, how judges handle science in the courtroom, why you jump at horror movies, how we're going to ship COVID-19 vaccines all over the country, our dependency on satellites, or how exactly your neurotransmitters are going to handle 2021, which is going to be a much better year. Science is everywhere, and it will be along for the ride. Catch you all soon.